Well, at this point, people can go in two directions. There's one class of people who will say, all right, let's live the uncalculated life. Let's not make any plans.
Every single door other than TV you miss is key to unfolding this life that we live. Not to stack out the place, just the way that it is. Every motion is weighted in flotion, the shape. I'm more to your source, either eternal flame. Philosopher's stone is the throne of your soul. Welcome to me, you are with no purpose but growth. What we believe after these two return to the whole.
And before you know where they are, they're living a filthy pair. And scrounging around, living on petty thievery and so on. This is the usual thing. This is, got into it the wrong way.
Dissolved in the sea, the resolve of the song and the close of the sea. For the role that was played by the actor supreme, got engulfed in the clay. We forget we're descended from space. Every syllable uttered into the abyss is key to unfolding this life that we live. On the stack out the place, just the way that it is. Every motion is faded and flushing and shaded.
The first thing to do is, just as I said, whether you like it or not and whether you know it or not, the relationship between you and the environment is always one that is harmonious.
Every syllable uttered into the abyss is key to unfolding this life that we live. Not to stack out the place, just the way that it is. Every motion is weighted in flotion and shape.
So in the same way, you are always living the uncalculated life. You have to find out, first of all, that you're always doing it, and that what you call your calculations, the things you did, were funny little rationalizations. In other words, your ego has about as much control over what goes on as a child sitting next to its father in a car with a plastic steering wheel that is turning the car the way Daddy drives it. Because, as I pointed out, most of the functions, most of the goings-on, in you, around you, the circumstances of life, have nothing to do with your ego at all. And you don't even know why you make up your mind to do certain things.
Trust the process, not the flow. We flow along while making progress. Life is strange as science fiction. Found my mission, moving on and reminiscing. Memory disintegrating, growing calm. Found the peace within myself and thought was missing. Nothing gone when all there's one. These changing forms, I'll take the plunge back to the waves that they evaporated from. Then reminiscing, memory disintegrating, growing calm. I found the peace within myself and thought was missing. Nothing gone.
We know superficially we have few ideas. It's like when you enter into a marriage, you have really no control over its outcome in the ordinary sense of ego control. You've taken a colossal gamble in which you've involved enormous complexes of patterns. And maybe it'll come out all right if you don't interfere with it too much. You don't.
Trust the process, not the flow. We flow along while making progress. Life is strange as science fiction. Found my mission, moving on and reminiscing. Memory disintegrating, growing calm. Found the peace within myself and thought was missing. Nothing gone when all there's one. These changing forms, I'll take the plunge back to the waves that they evaporated from. Then reminiscing, memory disintegrating, growing calm. I found the peace within myself and thought was missing. Nothing gone.
Like Oppenheimer said, it's perfectly obvious that the whole world is going to hell. And the only possible way we might stop that happening is not to try to prevent it. You know, all these wars are started out by people who think that they're helping someone, that it's going to make things better. So, when you begin from the basis, not of saying, I should now live the spontaneous and improvident and non-calculating style of life. But realize you've always done that, only you rationalized that you didn't. You always did what you wanted to do, basically.
Want to give up, but in the dust, nothing to give. Just let me quit, rising above the fact that I live. Still I live right back to nothing again. Stuck in this rut, let me break from the trend. Hiding my thought when I fall at the end. Break up the door when I break from this place. Hoping I'm healing the thief in this land. We've been plotting my way, waking up in a dream. I believe it's my fate to escape from this game. Be a glitch in the matrix, the fool on the stage. On my name, but the whole lot contained. Want to give up, that in the dust, nothing to give. Just let me quit, rising above the thought that I did. Still on the run, back to nothing again.
Only you said sometimes it was my duty. But you preferred a conception of yourself as someone who always does his duty. That flattered you. And so you were still following your own way.
Want to give up, but in the dust, nothing to give. Just let me quit, rising above the life that I live. Still on the run, back to nothing again. Stuck in this rut, let me break from the trend. Hiding my death when I fall at the end. Break up the door when I break from this place. Hoping I'm healing the thief in this land. Want to give up, but in the dust, nothing to give. Just let me quit, rising above the life that I live. Still on the run, back to nothing again. Stuck in this rut, let me break from the trend. Hiding my death when I fall at the end. Break up the door when I break from this place. Hoping I'm healing the thief in this land.
Now the first thing then is to see that. That's what's happening. So that you don't think, well now, there is some special thing I have to do to understand this harmonious relationship between the individual and the world. Because if you work on it that way, you will start from the presupposition that that relationship doesn't already exist and has to be brought into being. The thing is, it doesn't have to be brought into being. It's there. But now when you see that that's so, it obviously starts to make a difference. You do behave in a different way. But the behavior, the new kind of behavior that is a result of a transformation, is not forced behavior. When you try to imitate the way a saint behaves, you have made a forced change, and you know all forced behavior is phony. It's like someone saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, when you don't. You feel you ought to, but you don't really. And there's something, it doesn't ring true. Well, think of the poor Lord listening to all the prayers of all those people saying, I love you, Jesus. And he knows they don't. They're just saying this because they think they ought to. And they're very trying.
So now we're moving further through disorder. The observer, primal vaulted like the server. From the dawn, you wind to search for what makes us alive. Why are we in them? Why can we survive? And what have we become? We can find it from home from what we're before we drop. Back to myself on the side from the mall. Hiding away in a home in the call. Scrolling the page with a song from my heart. Finding my way when the dove in the night. Coughing the trails and get to the back. Dive in the sky when I finally fall. Calling it off when I meet my demise. Listen, now we're moving further through disorder. The observer, primal vaulted like the server. Follow down the wind to search for what makes us alive. Why are we in them? Why can we survive? And what have we become? We can find it from home from all right before we drop. Back to myself on the side from the mall. Hiding away in my home in the call. Scrolling the page with a song from my heart. Finding my way when the dawn in the night. Coughing the trails and get to the light. Dive in the sky when I finally fall. Calling it off when I meet my demise. Home from all right before we drop. Back to myself on the side from the mall. Hiding away in my home in the call. Scrolling the page with a song from my heart. Finding my way when the dawn in the night. Coughing the trails and get to the light. Dive in the sky when I finally fall. Calling it off when I meet my demise.
So, whenever you do a thing like that, you see, you make a forced change. Now, if the change is to happen in the same way that a seed at proper season breaks open and sends up a shoot, okay, it comes from the whole force of life itself. Now, when you see that without your having to do anything, see, you are living the uncalculated life, and you're only pretending you're calculating and arranging it, then, as it were, you will have a grasp of the total situation, and you can allow it to produce changes in action which are not So this is why there is always a trend in every kind of spiritual doctrine which says something about grace, divine grace. There must come about something in you, a change, which you can't produce.
Lonely, I come in and felt I would leave. Losing a problem and broke on a piece. Proud of myself, I was sleeping with the team. One more week of the scene I perceive. Made of these waves washing out on the sea of the ocean of being. Receive a redeemer, there's nothing to know and there's no way to leave in this moment forever, never any soon. Lonely, I come in and felt I would leave. Losing a problem and broke on a piece. Proud of myself, I was sleeping with the team. One more week of the scene I perceive. Made of these waves washing out on the sea of the ocean of being. Receive a redeemer, there's nothing to know and there's no way to leave in this moment forever, never any soon.
And if you try to produce it, you will be the victim of spiritual pride. But on the other hand, all teachers at university saying, you've got to make an effort. There's some discipline, there is something you must do.
Time to unburden my best in the beat. Wheeling it down from my head to my feet. Starting to think that there's no way to lose. Got to let go to the flow of the truth. Making my mark for my fate. Healing my heart while I wait. Using this gift full of knife. Trying to slip it tonight. Going sick of the world that is nice. Time to unburden my best in the beat. Wheeling it down from my head to my feet. Starting to think that there's no way to lose. Got to let go to the flow of the truth. Making my mark for my fate. Healing my heart while I wait. Using this gift full of knife. Trying to slip it tonight. Going sick of the world that is nice.
Well, that's the only way to get it across to people. That you, as a separate effort maker, are a myth, are a phantasm. Because if you really try to control your mind and only think the thoughts that you think are good thoughts to think, you will find that you're going round in a circle. Krishnamurti is awfully good at pointing this out. When people ask him, how do you meditate? He says, why do you want to meditate? Why are you concentrating? Why are you saying prayers? Why do you think you should believe in God?
Edge of my seat, taking my heels, feeling complete with my hands at the wheel, ready to leave, need to release, holding my breath, exhale my energy, letting them go, onto unknown, finding my faith, all I needed my soul, one with the hope, let me undone, chosen to spread all my gold on the road, got to escape, losing the way, winding my ways, and fall to my fate, turning the page, losing my face, never my name, always one with the game, ready to die, waiting to die, won't be afraid when I meet my demise, taking the sky, let heaven fly, back into space when I run out of time, edge of my seat, taking my heels, feeling complete with my hands at the wheel, ready to leave, need to release, holding my breath, exhale my energy, letting them go, onto unknown, finding my faith, all I needed my soul, one with the hope, let me undone, chosen to spread all my gold on the road.
And it always comes up because I'm just a son of a bitch. I mean, I'm out for my own good, and this seems to be the way. So he says, you see, you don't have any genuine love at all, it's all fake.
Got to escape, losing the weight, winding my way as I fell to my fate, turning the page, losing my face, never my name, I was one with the game, ready to die, waiting to die, won't be afraid when I meet my demise, turn to the sky, then head a fly, back in this place when I run out of time, edge of my seat, tip to my heels, feeling complete with my hands at the wheel, ready to leave, need to release, holding my breath, on my energy, letting them go, onto unknown, finding my faith, all I needed my soul, one with the hope, let me unplug, chosen to spread all my gold on the road.
And so you have to find, first of all, where the genuine love is. Now you love you, don't you? That's genuine. We won't argue about that. I gave a talk some time ago to the Air Force. And they got a bunch of us there who were ministers and philosophers. And they had the nerve to ask us what was our basis for moral behavior, personal moral behavior.
Riding this line on the edge of the knife, biding my time for me, my demise, losing life as I dive into night, making light of the shape, penetrate, multiply till I fade, divided at war with my mind, sending words to the waves, navigating my way, elevating my vibe, nothing wrong, everything is alright, practice placing the words into phrases to reach out of sight, come alive, rise again,
selfishness. And I'm talking, after all, to realistic people here, and I don't think we need to be sentimental and beat about the bush. After all, you're all warriors and fighters and so on, and you know how rough things are. So I'm going to say to you frankly, I'm out for me. But of course, I don't do it in a tactless way. I don't go around and hit people over the head and say, give me this, give me that. I'm much more subtle. I say, good manners, please, and how nice you all are, and so on, and try to make people feel massaged psychologically into a state where they'll give.
Looking at the morning dew, glisten like a diamond new. Falling out for a few of that who racing me and you. Actors antics on the stage, jokers know it's just a ruse. Make believe it's all in play, curtains falling on the cue. Why believe what you haven't seen? You could be deceived, set me free. Need the less of these, time to switch the scene. Elevate, let the light escape, can't wait another day. Let it break, let it fall away, got nothing left to lose.
But then I said after that, there's some things that bother me. First one is, if I love me, what do I want? And furthermore, who am I?
Subterfuge, a collective grave, riding in the shade, illuminate as we surely fade, moving towards the truth, bending zoom so I can't complain, aiming for my fate, give it strength, know I'll find a way, use it right away. Subterfuge, a collective grave, riding in the shade, illuminate as we surely fade, moving towards the truth, bending zoom so I can't complain, aiming for my fate, give it strength, know I'll find a way, use it right away.
Plus, if I'm going to be realistic about getting what I want, I've got to be pretty sure what it is that's me and what is the state of desire in me. If I am desire, see, if I am a center of desire, what's it all for? Well, I think of all the things I want. Well, it so turns out that none of them are me. When I say I want dinner, I don't mean I'm going to eat me up. Any pleasure I can think of is the enjoyment of something that I hadn't thought of defining as myself. Because I like my sensations. I like what happens to my body when I take a fine wine and down it. But then what's the difference between my body and the wine? If I say I like the wine, I also mean I like me and the wine together. The mixture.
Oppressed, the downtrodden, so stressed, I say frauded, been blessed and forgotten, majestic, but fault in deception, my vision infected, decision effects with precision, so sit back and listen, while on my way, walking back to my home, closing my eyes and I'm finally alone, cold in my veins, dry my face into stone, told you I hate everything we become.
But then I don't eat you or a friend or a lover in the same way as I drink wine. I live in association and like this. But then I'm loving things that aren't formally supposed to be me.
My best to say honest, obsessed with this process, no rest, I stay on into tempted, no promise. Left with my demons, I'm finding no reason, a slave to the treason, erasing my season. Sent off to seek out the place I could fit in. Personal mission, still met with affliction. Roll down the road as I watch it unfold. Rest of the story is yet to be told.
And as I go into it, in other words, as I investigate what I mean by me, I find that I can't put any limits on it. That I cannot experience me without you. Or without the other. They're inseparable. But you don't find this out until you investigate. Until you really go into the question, what do I want? And that's the most important investigation anyone can make. If you were told that you were going to be given half an hour's interview with God, and you had the privilege of asking one question, I wonder what you would ask. You might be given some preparation too. Because when you think, what is your ultimate question? You will probably do many things before you arrive at it. And I know many people who discover that they had no question to ask. The situation would be altogether too overwhelming. But But many people to whom I've put this problem say that the question that they would ask is, who am I? And that is something we know very little about. Because whatever it is that we call I is too close for inspection. It's like trying to bite your own teeth or to touch the tip of your finger with the tip of the same finger. And although other people can tell you who you are and do, they only see you from the outside, as you see them from the outside. And you don't see from the inside. And so the nature of what it is that we call I is extremely puzzling, because there is some confusion as to how much of us is I. We talk in ordinary ways about my body, my feet, and when we go to the dentist to have our teeth fixed, we regard him rather as a mechanic. Like you take your car to the garage, so you take your body to the surgeon or the dentist or whatever it is to be fixed, have the parts changed or something of that kind. And they're really getting to work on that now. And so the question is, when somebody has a heart transplant, that sounds very radical because we say in my heart of hearts. But nowadays, most of us seem to feel that whatever it is that I is located in the head. Somewhere behind the eyes and between the ears is the center.
End of the line, watch me rock on my dive. Trying my best, what it takes to survive. Hide up the day overhead, leaving my demons behind. Let me take to the sky. Breath on my way as I wind down the road. Closer to home, out through space when I go. Head that my heels have been held in my skull. Benevolent ends from recidivist soul. Spitting again from my dome. Scrubbing these spells in my notes to the dome. Let me grow, letting go of the stress. Drive the way to the flow. Kingdom kept in my head, all this flowing like smoke. End of the line, watch me back on my dive. Trying my best, what it takes to survive. Hide up the day overhead, leaving my demons behind.
This song makes me really happy.
Breath on my way as I wind down the road. Closer to home, out through space when I go. Head that my heels have been held in my skull. Benevolent ends from recidivist soul. End of the line, watch me go for my dive. Trying my best, what it takes to survive. Hide up the day overhead, leaving my demons behind. Let me take to the sky. End of the line, watch me go for my dive. Trying my best, what it takes to survive. Hide up the day overhead, leaving my demons behind. Let me take to the sky. Spitting again from my dome. Scrubbing these spells in my nose to the dome. Let me grow, letting go of the stress. Drive the way to the flow. Kingdom kept in my head, all this flowing like smoke.
And the rest of us is an appendage, a vehicle, which carries the self around. Now, popular speech also reflects the sensation that I am very different from what we call the other. Other people, other things, anything that we can become aware of is sort of other. There is an opposition, apparently, between the knower and the known. And so we talk about facing reality. We talk about coming into this world as if somehow we didn't belong. As if instead of being leaves growing out of a tree, we were a lot of birds that had alighted on bare branches. It has become common sense for most people living in the 20th century today to adopt the 19th century philosophy of science. interprets the physical universe outside human bodies as being a mechanical contraption, which is essentially stupid, unfeeling, automatic, composed of mainly geological elements, rocks, gases, and so forth. And therefore we feel rather alone and left out of this thing.
Dejected and hated this place I'd have made, blessed by myself anyway. Rejected the world and avoided the game they need down now to fade. I can't take all the strain, nor the lesson, nor test. I see nothing to gain. This aggression I hate, not impressed by the fate. Stay depressed in my cage, pulling thread from my chest. Wanted lines, tying chains, feeling bound by the brain. Like I'm stuck to mistakes and I just can't escape. Keep me safe though I walk to the grave. Never facing my name, guarding caught in this maze. Did I call from the grave in the night of the day?
In contrast with the ideas of Ptolemaic astronomy, instead of being at the center of the universe, we are on the outer limits of a minor galaxy, revolving around an unimportant star on a small, minute ball of rock. And therefore, that astronomical way of looking at things is simply overwhelming. It makes us feel not only of no importance, but also very much left out. That is the common sense of most people living today. We did, of course, have a religious view of our nature, that we were the children of a loving God who is in charge of this whole operation. But very few people actually believe that anymore.
Entering my seat, take to my heels, feeling complete when my hands at the wheel. Ready to leave to the peace. Holding my breath takes all my energy. Ready to go on to unknown. Finding my faith up and need in my soul. One with the whole, then me unload. Chosen to spread all my gold on the boat.
A great many people think they ought to believe in it, would like to believe in it, but they don't. Most ministers that I know don't believe it, but they feel guilty about this because they feel they ought to. But it became implausible.
Got to escape, losing the way. Winding my way, yes, I fall to my fate. Turning the page, losing my face. Never my name, I was wrong with the game. Ready to die, waiting to die. Won't be afraid when I meet my demise. Take to the sky, learned how to fly. Back into space when I've run out of time.
There never was a serious argument against it. It simply became unthinkable in comparison with the dimensions of the universe as we now see it. So having lost a way of looking at the world, an image of the world which gave us some sense of meaning, we now have an image of the world which gives us none at all. And so we feel rather inclined to put up a fight against the whole show. Interestingly enough, when in the 19th century we switched our common sense from supernaturalism to naturalism, one would think that a naturalist would be a person who loved nature.
Come out of hiding, high time to release all the dreams that are seething beneath in the swell of the ether. Collective intelligence bleeds for release from the blind. See me safe through the night, still alive when I leave. Wish me well on my way, pray I follow my feet. Still I'm stuck to the scene, need to turn off the page. A new script now to read, I desire surprise, toss the games that have been.
Just as a materialist ought to be a person who loves material, but certainly isn't. With what is called the philosophy of scientific naturalism, naturalism is used in a negative way. It has nothing to do with being natural. It has something to do with being not supernatural, merely natural.
Come out of hiding, high time natural. These are the dreams that are streaming beneath this world. They need the collective intelligence. Please release from the place and be safe to the night still alive. When I be push me well on my way, pray I follow my feet. So I'm stuck in this scene, need to turn up the pitch and script out the beat and desire suppress us against our beat.
And all sorts of phrases were coined in that epoch, which I would call put-down phrases. Freud spoke of the basic psychic energy as libido, which means blind lust. People like Ernst Haeckel spoke of the universe as being a manifestation of blind energy. Think of that put-down word, blind. And therefore we also speak of unconscious mental mechanisms. And the very word unconscious as being the deeper aspect of our psyche is a negative word and a put-down word. So as to say, what you are functioning as a rational ego with values and with a capacity to love is simply the epiphenomenon of a purely mechanical process. Too bad.
See the light of my horizon, watch it climb up with the source of light, the spark that issues fall from solar fire. Break a day, see the light of my horizon, watch it climb up with the source of light, the spark that issues fall from solar fire. Every savage bro, you perfect in this place at every moment, not alone, you won't with all, don't be afraid. No response from the thing, you're like a wave upon the ocean, let emotion overflow, potent message from the soul.
So as a result of this so-called naturalism, we began to put up the most whopping fight against nature that was ever engaged in. And that fight is an expression of our fury and of our feeling of being left out. So that the technological experiment, which became possible as a result of the mechanical sciences, has largely been conducted in a spirit of rage, and the results are evident all around us.
Not the puppet on a string, no, you're the actor of the show, made up the scene by everything, so you evoke this life of modulating energy. Blessed be every me that it be, blessed be every me that it be. Break a day, see the light of my horizon, watch the climb up with the source of light, the spark that issues fall from solar fire. Break a day, see the light of my horizon, watch the climb up with the source of light, the spark that issues fall from solar fire.
Because we are in a position where we realize that we cannot help interfering with the world. To be alive is to interfere. You must interfere. You cannot go back and say, hands off nature, let's leave it all alone. Because you're stuck with it, especially once you've started to interfere in a major way. We have so altered our environment that there is no hope for it but to go ahead.